coming on now. We're happy to have her back, of course, talking more about baseball research. I'll bring her on right now. Sarah, you're muted. Just want to make sure you're fine there. Thanks for being here at PitchCon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I was thinking back to when we did that, it was the end of May, right? And now we've had our season. There's even more stats to look into, and I'm excited to answer some questions.
Oh man, I mean, this is I look actually at our like YouTube channel and seeing which ones were watched after the fact. I think yours is one of the more watched ones, which is makes it's no surprise to me, given that this stuff is incredibly helpful for us to answer all of our research questions. So I'm going to let you just jump straight into it here. If you want to share your screen, I can push it up into the stream. But yeah, in the meantime, huge thanks to everyone that has been supporting us on Go.Rally Up as we raise money for Feeding America. 50% of all we raise goes straight to them. I'm seeing some campaign chatter. Look at this, Steve Garner. Thanks, Alex and Nick and everyone else for doing this. Thank you, Steve. That was a fantastic presentation. Awesome cause and great content. Thanks for all your hard work, says an anonymous supporter. Please go and contribute right now. We have dozens and dozens of prizes to give away. We want to give away all of them. I think what we're going to do, that mystery prize that we have at 15,000, we're going to give that away at 10,000. We'll be announcing what that is tomorrow morning. I think it's a very, very special one. Thank you so much, Matthew Nielsen, who just recently donated as well. You are fantastic. Stephen Humans as well, Jordan White. Please go to the link below, go.rallyup.com/pitchcon. And it looks like you're ready to go, Sarah.
Yes, if you guys see my screen.
Take it away.
Good. Yes, you see a bunch of questions?
Oh, yeah, awesome. You're great.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to do, very similar to what I did here last time, which was I asked for some questions from all of you on Twitter and elsewhere, and I'm just going to show you how I would answer them. So obviously there are a ton of research tools that are available to us online. This is what I do for a living. I guess I should say that. I'm a reporter and researcher for MLB.com and go on podcasts and go on MLB Network, stuff like that. So the core function that I'm doing for all of that is researching. And there's a lot of ways to do baseball research. There are a lot of websites to use. There's a lot of stuff you can do beyond maybe just websites in terms of Excel, if you're handy there. But I'm just going to focus on a couple websites, the ones that are most publicly available. Fangraphs, Baseball Savant, and then StatHead, formerly Baseball Reference Play Index. That one does require a subscription. It's very worth it, I will say that. And the other two, Fangraphs, you can subscribe to, and you should to help support them, but you can use their site regardless, and Baseball Savant has no paying. So if you ask me a question and I did not answer it, or I don't get to it here, one, could be because we run out of time, but two, it could be because it's just something that would require some Excel work. And I figure I'd do a research tutorial, not an Excel tutorial. So that's what's going on here. Please don't be offended. So I'm going to start with this first question, which came from Alex Fast back in, I want to say November, before Stroman even accepted the qualifying offer. I think he was just looking to put out a tweet about how good Marcus Stroman has been. And he asked me this question. So he said, Marcus Stroman has never posted a FIP above 4. Are there any other pitchers between 2019, since 2020 hadn't started yet, and I'm sorry, not since it hadn't started yet because he didn't pitch that year, and 2014, which is when Stroman debuted, who've not had a FIP above 4, or who's had the most seasons like that in a career? So my first thing to do there was just to go to Stroman's page on Baseball Reference. And I took a look here, and we all remember he had the injury. He went back to school, finished his degree, all of that. But obviously that cut short, especially this 2015 season. So while it's true that he never had a FIP in a season above 4, this season, I was already looking at it. This isn't really going to count necessarily. He only threw 27 innings. I think this is when he came back in September in the end of that year. That's not really going to play in if we're looking at, what pitchers have done in their careers or in that span. So what I said to Alex was, let me look at this. Let me look at guys who in this span had whatever number of seasons with at least 100 innings pitched, where you'll see that'll comprise every other season for Stroman other than 2015, and had a FIP below 4. So I'll show you what I did and what the note was that we came up with. So you go to stat head, which is formerly, it used to say play index here, same thing, same tools, some updated ones, some additional stuff, but no losses, just change in terminology. And for this, we're going to want a player season pitching finder. And there's a ton of stuff in here. And the one thing that I love about Baseball Reference is that there are really great examples for every single thing you can click here. So every type of search you can do. So it's not just so simple as we can do a pitching season or career finder. There are 6 different options to do with that. And even within those, there's so many different options of what you could do. So these kind of explain it if you're just curious and sort of want to, self-teach yourself or begin to try to figure out what kinds of questions you can answer. You can sort of extrapolate from those. But what I'm going to want here is I want to know pitchers having the most of a certain type of season with parameters I'm going to set. So for that situation, we're going to go to players with seasons matching criteria. And this new updated stat head gives you this, hey, you've edited it. Do you want to get the results? But we haven't done everything yet. So not yet is the answer. So we're going to start with 2014. And we're going to end with 2019 since Stroman didn't pitch in 2020. And then I was saying how we wanted to have at least 100 innings. So there's a couple ways to do it. There's minimum playing time right up here. So we can just do innings pitched and change it to 100. And then our big number here is going to be the FIP. But I do want to point out, you could have done the innings pitched here. It'll have the same effect. The top one is just kind of more accessible and easy. So if we go here, FIP is right here. And I'm going to say a FIP below 4. So I'm going to do like 3 and a bunch of 9s just in case anything gets funky with rounding. But 3.99 would probably suffice. So right now with what we've set, and it gives you exactly like in kind of plain text what you're searching for up here, we're looking for seasons from 2014 to 19 with a FIP. Didn't update up there, but there we go. Less than or equal to 3.9 repeating and at least 100 innings, sorted by greatest seasons matching criteria. So greatest being a number, not the best seasons, but most total. So it's going to tell us who had the most seasons like that in that span. So if we get the results, we'll see that Stroman is, of course, here with 5. That's because he didn't do this in 2015. But this list of 7 is a really good list. So we have Justin Verlander, Strasburg, Scherzer, Sale, Kershaw, DeGrom, and Bumgarner. They all did this in every season in that span. So I went back to Alex and I said, all right, he had this season where he was hurt. That's not his fault. That's not something we want to hold against someone, especially in a stat. So I suggested that he say, Stroman has done this every time he's pitched 100 innings in this span. Here are the only other guys to do that every season they pitched in that span. Or here are the only guys to do that more, whatever it might be, and qualifying and pointing out that the one season where he didn't do it, he only threw 27 innings. So it's not like he lost it from the FIP perspective, he lost it from the inning side. So that's just a kind of quick intro, I guess, of one sort of Baseball Reference search. And there's so much you can do with this, but certainly for what I clicked up here, you're just looking for most seasons doing X. So whatever it might be. And, part of research is not just knowing how to find the thing or knowing what the numbers mean, but it's also understanding context. So that's why, sometimes you don't have a chance to, on a TV graphic, necessarily write out, hey, he missed a season with injury. That's why he's not on this list with 6, but why it's still notable. But certainly in an article, in a tweet, and just in conversation on a podcast or whatever else, you can get into that kind of thing. And that's what's so important. And understanding exactly like where we fit this within the overall conversation. So that's one. And that's, again, StatHead, Baseball Reference. I didn't really go through all the different search tools here, but most of the terminology up here, I think, is relatively self-explanatory. And I think I'll use a couple more of these at various points. But we have season finders for batting or pitching, so we can do stuff like we just did. We have game finders, which will look at specific games, so just a box score line instead. Split finders, which will take what you're used to seeing on a splits page and make it searchable. So like most home runs as a shortstop, something like that. Streaks, you can do hitting streaks, strikeout streaks, 10 plus strikeout streaks, like Garrett Cole back in 2019 or Chris Sale in 18. And then we have, season finders for teams. So there's other places to do this as well. But the team season finder is a little newer for Baseball Reference, I think in the last 3 years. But you can do, like when the Twins set the home run record in 2019, this is where you would have come to confirm that they have it now, or that they were what number they were approaching. You can do game finder for teams. So obviously you could do most home runs in a game for a team, most strikeouts on either side, however you want to look at that. The splits is the same concept. And then the event finder is going to look on an event level. So game finder is giving you a box score line. The event finder is going to give you a specific plate appearance event. So a walk, strikeout, home run, whatever else it might be. This is where we'd look at stuff like walk-off home runs, or also walk-off walks, anything kind of that variety. Then we have those same kinds of finders for All-Star Game and postseason. And I should say that the game finders also allow you to search All-Star and postseason. But here you could find, walk-off home run in an All-Star game, Grand Slam in an All-Star game. There's been one. Postseason, any sort of event like that. And there's so much stuff here. I mean, one thing that I feel like I tweeted out a couple weeks ago, I can't remember why, is there's a thing called the Oracle of Baseball, where you can literally connect one player to any other player in baseball history. And it's like, they were on the roster with this person, who's on the roster with this person. You're going from Edwin Diaz to Babe Ruth, or some other, combination that might make a bit more sense than that one, but whatever else it might be. So that's kind of all hidden when you click on the StatHead link and go through all the different finders there. So anyway, that's kind of the overview after answering one of the questions. But now we'll go back. So this was what I ended up presenting to Alex and what he tweeted out. And I feel like Stroman loved it. So I guess that's an added benefit. So here's another question I got. So Ricky Henderson stole 130 bags in his age 23 season. Has anyone younger ever stolen more? Who is the youngest to have stolen 100 plus? So 2 questions here. We'll answer the first one first. First thing to note, and again, this kind of gets back to that idea of context and how important it is with baseball research. So age season. Every sport has this, but in baseball, it's your age on June 30th. So a really great example is Nelson Cruz, whose birthday is July 1st. So he turned 40 on July 1st, which was before the season even started last year. But because he was 39 on July 30th, last year was his age 39 season. There are other guys who are obviously not as extreme of examples, but this is just to find some way to uniformalize what it is, because, some guys are a certain age for 20 days of the season, another age for the rest of it, or vice versa, or an even split or anything else. And I prefer to do notes as the exact age, which involves the game finder. So to do this as a 23-year-old, not age 23 season, but there are certain limitations in certain season-long stats that we can't look at in that way. So for this kind of question, we end up having to use age season. And I still hope that, with all of the great researchers we have out there, somehow, some way, there will be a slightly better way to do this. And that's not against anybody. It's how it exists, and it exists that way for a reason. But Nelson Cruz, again, just back to that example. So someone wants to know about Ricky Henderson in his age 23 season. So first, I'm just going to confirm that the first part is true. I'm sure it is, but just to show how I would do that. So we'll come, Ricky. We'll come over here and search for Ricky Henderson. And he indeed stole 130 bases in his age 23 season. And I mean, the second part of the question asked about youngest to steal 100, and we'll see if it's him here 2 years prior. But anyway, so in 1982, age 23 season, 130 stolen bases. If you're not familiar with Baseball Reference, bold means that you led your league, so the American League or National League, and italics means that you led the majors. Should come as no surprise that these numbers that are 3 digits led the majors. So now we're going to go back and, okay, has anyone younger ever stolen more bases? So that's asking me, has anyone in their age, what's the most stolen bases in an age 22 season or younger? So we're going to go back here. We're going to go to the season finder for batting, which is where stolen bases live. And we're going to leave it as find single season totals. So this is defaulting to most home runs in the season. We're going to change it obviously from home runs, but this is what we want. Just a flat view of every season in baseball history. We're going to sort it by stolen bases, and we're going to take away anyone older than 22. So for sort by, we're going to come over here and change it to stolen bases. Again, it's going to ask us, and we're going to say not yet. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to go to biographical filters. So biographical filters is like player information, kind of like that top of the baseball reference page. So we'll go to age, and it tells you that that age season is age on June 30th. Nobody's trying to hide it from anybody. It's just the way it goes. So we're going to say any age, which in this case would be less than 15, to 22. So anyone in their age 22 season or younger, because that was the question. Now we're going to search. And we will find out that the only player to even steal 100 bases in his age 22 season or younger was Ricky Henderson, which also answers the second question about anyone younger to steal 100. And also says that nobody younger than Ricky Henderson in 1982 has ever stolen that many bases. So you'll see that, especially with something like this, I had a feeling we were going to have something in the 1800s. In fact, a decent number of guys in the 1800s, just, game was very different. And certain stats like that tend to really pile up. So if we wanted to say maybe the modern era, obviously Ricky's leading the list regardless, but just to give a bit more, again, to the context point, bit more easily compared. Not that 1909 and Ty Cobb is that recent to what we're doing these days either, but it's a little closer. It feels like it, right? We can come over here and change the years, and huge shout out to Baseball Reference. They recently made it so that modern era is one of the clicks. It used to be AL era, which is 1901, and then I would scroll back one. That was my method. Don't need to do that anymore. So modern era will give us since 1900, which is the modern era in baseball, and this will just take off some of those 1800s guys, which means that we get Jose Reyes and Carl Crawford within our top 10 here, and obviously some Ricky appearances, and some other fun seasons. So that's that one. I think we're good there. Oh, you know what? I'll show one more thing that I recently, to the point about how incredible Baseball Reference is. I've been using this for my job for at least 6 years plus time before that. I've been using this website for a long time as a baseball fan, and I'm constantly learning new things about it. So something that Adam Dorowski, who does like user engagement for Baseball Reference, put out in a video, I want to say a week or two ago, and it changed my life, was if we go to game logs. So let's go to this 1982 season. So if we go to 1982 game logs, one thing to know with Baseball Reference is anything in red is clickable. And if it's clickable, it's probably going to help you get more information without opening up another window. So for instance, on this game, which went 16 innings, where he had 8 plate appearances, if you click on it, you get his plate appearances really easily here. This one I knew, by the way, not that it matters, but you can come over here and see exactly what happened for him in each plate appearance in this game, which is very helpful, especially with a 16-inning game. The other option would be to pull up the box score, Control F for Ricky, and there's so much going on that page. So this just gives you those answers really quickly. If you were curious about, what inning, okay, you see here that he had a double. What inning was that double? Okay, here you go. It was in the 5th. So what I learned that I did not know is that if you click on, let's just go a couple games into the season here. So if you click on this 375, you know that this is telling you what number game of his career. So this is his 375th game of his career. If you click here, it gives you his career totals through that game. So on this line that I've highlighted in yellow, we already have season totals for the rate stats. So that 219, 430, 315, that was what he was slashing through this game in the season, through his 20th game. But it doesn't accumulate the counting stats for you because it's just one line. And it's only giving you within that season. So if you click on this one in game career, it'll give you cumulative career totals through this game. So that's really helpful. I know I love to do comparisons, when Vlad Jr. homers, I say how many games it took him to get to whatever career number home runs compared to his father. Same with Mike and Carl Yastrzemski, even though very different careers, very different career trajectories. But when I do that by going to the home run log and finding when they hit that home run and then eyeballing for the date and praying I didn't remember the date wrong and triple checking it. This kind of helps me do that. So if I were to go over there and say, okay, he had this many, whatever it is, home runs through this game, then I can click that and double check that it's true. So really, really helpful. And then if you click on these, the game 20, so as I said, these rate stats are true through this game. This also adds everything else up for you. So you can see he was already up to 19 stolen bases through 20 games this season. Seems pretty good. You can understand how he got to 130. So those are just two unrelated to the search things that are really awesome on Baseball Reference. And I would always encourage, if you see red text, click on it, because you never know what you will find. And it will probably be helpful if you're already on that page and looking for something. So coming back to our questions. So someone asked this: who threw the most recent knuckleball in a major league game? So this is going to take us away from Baseball Reference and bring us over to Baseball Savant. And I do want to start off by saying that we've had some position players pitch. Certainly we had a couple last year, obviously Todd Frazier and Eric Kratz come to mind. And there have been plenty of position players to pitch over the last few years, which means that when they throw very slow, sometimes it gets picked up as a knuckleball, but we wouldn't necessarily really think it's a knuckleball. So we may see some people on this search who are actually position players, and for the purposes of this, and if I were being asked this in a work context, I would skip over them and say traditional pitcher or whatever phrasing you would want to use. So to answer this, we'll need next level pitching data, right? Pitch velocity, pitch type, all of that. So that's where we go over to StatCast, and we can start at the main Baseball Savant page. All this information here, Taijuan Walker is trending because he just signed with the Mets, and Fernando Tatis Jr. is trending because he should be, as with Juan Soto, and so on and so forth. And we'll come over here to the search page. This is the Baseball Savant search. I know that it can sometimes look a little intimidating. There are a lot of, drop downs and places to click, but if you just read through everything and really understand what's within each drop down, I promise it will make sense. And, the best way to learn from this is honestly just by doing it. And that goes for any of these searches to whatever extent you have the ability to. Obviously, Baseball Reference is different. But, clicking along or, coming up with your own questions and trying to answer them is definitely the way to learn how to do this. Just sitting and listening to it, it's hard to, muscle memory is important, actually clicking on whichever box. So I was asked about knuckleballs. So we'll come over here to pitch type, and here's knuckleball. And I think the way I'm going to do this so that it doesn't, Baseball Savant is super powerful and there's so much information on here. So I'm always thinking about how can I do the search in a way that will overload it, not overload, but give me the kind of the fewest results within the ones that are correct, just so that it doesn't take forever to load. Because certain things just, is bringing me thousands of home runs. It's going to take a while to load. So we'll come over here. We have knuckleball. For that reason, I'm going to stick with 2020 and then we'll go back because the answer won't be in 2020. We're going to group by. So this is one of the most important parts of the Baseball Savant search. So what this is telling you is it's not that dissimilar from the concept here of single season totals, combined career totals, most seasons matching criteria, and so on. So it's another way to sort, to group, I guess that is why that's the word, the information. So if we leave it as player name and we do it here, it's going to tell us who threw the most knuckleballs in 2020. But that's not what we want. We want dates with it, right? Because we want to be able to figure out which was the most recent of these dates. So if we go to group by and we change it to player and event, it will change that so that we will get each individual event with these filters, which in this case is going to be each individual knuckleball thrown. In terms of something to sort by, this will always be next level information. So you can't choose, I can't choose date here. So we'll have to manually look at that. So in this case, pitch velocity, why not? So we're going to go ahead and press search. This will give us every knuckleball from this year. And now I can sort it by game date. And it was the two guys I predicted, Todd Frazier and Eric Kratz. Okay, neither of them are real pitchers. So we're going to continue. We're going to go back to 2019. you could do this with all the years at once. I'm just trying to avoid that. And we'll go over here. So most recent, and it appears that we have Stephen Wright. And we can watch the pitch if we want. I don't think you will hear the audio because I didn't select that, but it doesn't really matter. You don't need to. So yeah, and if we wanted to do something like more consistently, or we wanted to do most knuckleballs in a season, maybe tracked by StatCast, we could do that. So we can go to player and year. So now the position players will be at the bottom of the list because they only made like one appearance, maybe two. So now I've selected every year because it's not going to give me every individual one. It's going to give me a player, a pitcher, and a total number of knuckleballs thrown. So that's all it's searching for. Very low-key Savant search. Player and year, so that it will separate, Tim Wakefield 1 year from another year. Search, and it will take a little longer, but not that long. So it's this pitches. The total is total number of pitches he threw that year. So if you remember, he also had a semi-fastball. And so, yeah, it's going to be R.A. Dickey, primarily because Tim Wakefield's career did not extend too far into the StatCast era. So these are the most knuckleballs thrown in a season tracked by StatCast. And, we get here to a certain point, and we're going to get into the position players throwing, Mike Carp, throwing, a couple pitches in a year. But that's how we would answer that one. So again, it kind of comes to, you need to know exactly what you're looking for. Obviously, if you were less familiar with the sport for whatever reason and trying to look at this, you might run this search and be like, oh, great, Eric Kratz and Todd Frazier. But, as a baseball fan and as someone who really understands the data behind the game, which, even at a pretty low level, high level, whatever it would be, as long as those are position players, they're not the answer to your question, and to keep digging. So that's another. And now we're going to say, okay, so someone asked me for the first pitcher, so I guess the first pitcher ever who had at least 20 starts in a season with no complete games. Okay, so we're going to go back. This is baseball reference. Anything historical is always going to be baseball reference. Go over here. We're going to go to pitching season finder. So part of figuring out the best way to sort your results is really figuring out what are the operative terms. I mean, I'm thinking back to even I don't know, elementary school, when they're asking you what's the action word here and what's the descriptor and that kind of stuff, right? So if you come over here, the question here is not all pitchers with 20 plus starts with no complete games, but the first pitcher. So that tells me that I'm going to want to, just by reading those first two words, I know that I want to sort by year, and I'm going to want to make it ascending as opposed to descending. So in general, it just defaults to descending because you want to see more of something than less or fewer. So we're going to come over here, and we're going to change the sort by to year, and we're going to change it to ascending. So we don't have Mr. Matt Kilroy with his 513 strikeouts. Now, the next part of this was at least 20 starts in a season. So GS, game started, 20, and no complete games. So go to complete games equal to 0. And we will run the search. And the answer is Ken McBride in 1964. So looks like he made 21 starts, so just barely. And we can go to his page and see what's the deepest that he got into a game that year. So his page, 1964. And if we go here and we sort by innings, we'll see, oh my gosh, he got so close. Let's see what happens. So this is how I research. So I hope this is interesting because I did not look any of these up beforehand because I wanted to find out with everybody else. And now I'm very interested to see what happened. He did allow a lot of runs there. So, I mean, this would have been a complete game loss, but all right. Let's see what happened. I love the old logos. Okay. So, Mr. McBride, he allowed this double to Nelson Matthews, and they were like, all right, you're done now. and then the next 2 runs scored as well. So that's a fun one. I mean, that's how close he came, even though, again, it would have been a complete game loss. Still would have been a complete game. So that is the first person to do it, which is pretty crazy and tells you all you need to know about how complete games and pitching went, certainly in the first, many years of baseball history, certainly into the 60s. And now I'm curious, I'm just eyeballing it, but what about someone making like 30 starts? And it looks like we have Fred Norman here, but you can see that all of these guys had relatively low innings totals for the eras in which they were pitching. So maybe they were 4th, 5th starters, not that there even were necessarily 5-man rotations, whatever else it might be. Very, very interesting to see. And now let's sort it by descending. And get a lot of guys more recently. No one in 2020 because nobody made 20 starts. But plenty of pitchers in 2019 made at least 20 starts and didn't have a complete game. You know what? Instead of scrolling, I'm going to show you another way we can search that. So that looked like a lot of pitchers in 2019 who had at least 20 starts and didn't have a complete game, right? So we can use this find seasons with players matching criteria to see if 2019 was the most. So if I select this, it's going to take away specifically showing us Brett Anderson, Chase Anderson, Chris Archer, whoever else. It'll show us them in another part. But what this is going to search for, like as the operative kind of term, is the year. So it's just going to go through all of this information and even information onto pages that we can't see at once because we can only see 300 results. And it's just going to grab, like a pivot table, if you're familiar with Excel, it's just going to grab the year. And it's going to tell us the most by each year. So the most players, pitchers matching these criteria in a single season. So if we do that, I'm going to go to get results. We will find out that 2018 was the most. There were 92 pitchers in 2018 who made at least 20 starts and didn't have a complete game. In 2019, I'm glad I stopped scrolling. That was 86 pitchers. And you can see that it isn't exactly a direct increase, but these are all pretty recent. And this is sorting by the number matching. So it's sorting by the number of pitchers that did this. You can also see that like our drop off from like 92 to 50 happens pretty quickly. And you can also see all of the seasons where this didn't happen. Obviously 2020, that was a shortened season, so it's a little bit different. But we could see, if we want to click here and sort by year instead, we could look at like, when was the first time that this happened multiple times? So we had Ken McBride, we had a couple other guys here, but 1977 was the first time that multiple pitchers did this. And somehow we get from there to 92 and 86. So pretty fun to trace that. You can see whose pages I've been on recently. That's fun. All right. So that's also just an example of how research leads you down, very different paths, just continuing to ask further questions. Someone who I used to work with used to say, finish the note. And we refer to stats as notes. And finishing the note is really just making sure you've exhausted all possibilities, all possible questions that could come of it, without doing every single thing in the book and exhausting yourself and wasting your time, but certainly going to like the next logical step. Okay, here's another. Who's played the most seasons with the Padres? So obviously Fernando Tatis Jr. just had his, reported huge extension. He's already played 2 seasons for the Padres. So assuming he plays all of those seasons for them, he'll be at 16. So if you're curious where that would rank, we'll go to player batting season finder. In this case, because any pitcher would be a National League pitcher for the Padres, which means that other than in 2020, they would have batted or been on that part of a box score at some point. We can just stick with batting. So we're going to go to players with seasons matching criteria. Then we're going to go to league and team. We're going to go to National League. We're going to go to San Diego Padres. And then you probably don't need to do this last part, but this is in the realm of like, just be careful and make sure you've done everything you can. I'm going to do games greater than equal to 1 in case someone somehow shows up and didn't actually play in the game, which shouldn't happen. I'm going to search that. And we will get Tony Gwynn, Trevor Hoffman, 2 Hall of Famers for the Padres, are the only guys to play even more than 11 seasons for the Padres. So again, Fernando Tatis Jr. would be tied with Hoffman right here at the end of that deal, and still only 35. So theoretically with a chance to even get further up on this list. Pretty simple one, but pretty fun. And if you click on individual seasons, it will give you each of those seasons. It's just auto sorting by home runs, but you don't need to read anything into that. But you can go through those for any player. If we go to Hoffman, it's going to give us his batting stats because we're on the batting finder. So unsurprisingly, zeros across the board on the home runs, but only a couple of plate appearances. But these still show up because he was in the National League. So that's another one. And obviously you can sort of envision, we'll go back here. You can sort of envision other ways you could use this. Most seasons with at least 1 home run, most seasons with at least 5 home runs just for an individual, something like that. Or, any other stat that you can imagine. So it's another one. So this is a variation on a question I got. So someone asked about kind of home run to strikeout ratio, but that's not a direct drop down, and very easy in Excel, but didn't want to bother with that. So another way to sort of consider that question is just, okay, what's the fewest strikeouts in a 50 homer season, 40 homer, 30 homer? So we're just going to go through each of those. So we're going to go back to the batting season finder. I always like to open a new window even if I'm using the same finder, just so that I don't accidentally have something click that I didn't realize or screw up with some sort of filter. So new batting season finder, we want fewest strikeouts. So we're going to go again to our ascending. We're going to go to strikeouts. And then over here in the filters, we're going to do, I said 50 homer season. So we'll do 50 homers. So it's just going to take every 50 homer season and sort it by the fewest strikeouts. And of course, it's Johnny Mize. And then Willie Mays, Ralph Kiner, Roger Maris. You're going to notice that for the most part, it's kind of older school. We do have Albert Bell in here. And then if we go to the bottom of the list, we get to Judge, Chris Davis, Pete Alonso, kind of the seasons that we probably, think of recently and think of homers and strikeouts. So that's the answer of the 46 50 homer seasons in Major League history. The fewest strikeouts in any of those is Johnny Mize had 42 in 1947. Nobody else had fewer than 60, and it was Willie Mays. So if we want to do the same, and obviously you see the home run totals, so those are all going to be 50 plus. So we're just going to knock the home run qualifier down to 40 to see if that changes this at all. So same search, just every 40 homer season. And we get Lou Gehrig with 49 home runs and 31 strikeouts, which just tells you how different that was to watch, which is just so incredible. We have a couple other here, but I mean, he was 1 homer shy of having 31 strikeouts and 50 home runs, or even if we give him 3 more strikeouts for that game where he would have theoretically hit that 50th home run. I mean, it's pretty crazy. So you can take a look here, pretty cool to see this Bonds season on here where he had more home runs than strikeouts. I think that may have been a question I answered last time on here, actually. And that's a fun one to look at. Obviously, all these guys did, but I think he's the last to do it. And then we'll do the same with a 30 homer season. So if we go to the 30 homer, we get the results. I mean, 13 strikeouts is just amazing. He played in 139 games. So we have Joe DiMaggio with 13 strikeouts and 30 home runs in 1941. We have Lefty O'Doul with 19 strikeouts and 32 home runs. So you can see there's a bunch here before we get back to that 49 homer season for Gehrig. But definitely a lot of fun. I think kind of a fun addendum to this would be, okay, all of these are, they're before expansion, all of them, right? They're before, at least the top results. 1961 is the expansion era. So let's say in the expansion era, what's the answer? So all I did was change the years. And we've got Don Mattingly, 35 strikeouts, 31 homers in 1986. We've got him twice. We've got Gary Sheffield, Barry Bonds, Mattingly again, Victor Martinez in 2014. So kind of a fun list, I think, for most people listening, probably the players, some of which at least were a little more familiar with watching live. Obviously, we know the legends. We know all about them. But just another fun one to do. Okay, so longest home run of 2020. I probably could have ordered these, but you know what? This is what I do. I bounce around to different sites. So that's what we're doing. So we'll go to Baseball Savant for this one, longest home run of 2020. And again, same best practice, open a new search page. Even though we were just on Savant, especially with Savant, like you can have something click that you had no memory of clicking. So definitely open a new one. All right, so this is going to be a little bit more use of kind of the different filters on here. So I think that's good. So we can go, I usually start with player type. It's not the first thing, it's not the top row or anything, but this is going to determine, are you doing a pitcher search or a hitter search, which to me is like, want to make sure I don't screw that one up. So let me start with that. So we go to player type, we're going to change the drop down to batter. Next thing, and this is just how my mind works, you can go in any order, it doesn't matter until you press search. Plate appearance result, we want just home runs. All right, so we're looking at batters, home runs, 2020. If we press search now, sorting by pitches, what this is going to do is go into the database and grab every pitch that was a home run, right? So it's really that event of the home run. So if we sort this, we're just going to get Luke Voigt leading the majors in home runs. That's not what we want. We want the longest home run. So if we change our group by again to player and event, that brings us to the box score event, right? The individual plate appearance event, home runs. So now this is going to give us every home run in 2020 sorted by pitch velocity. So the fastest pitch that was homered off of. But we were looking at longest home run. So if we go to player and event sort and we just scroll down here to distance projected, now it's going to give us every home run sorted by distance. Now, I mentioned before that there's a ton of information in here. So something I'll do to make my life easier and things load a little bit quicker is cut this off at a certain distance. So basically say, let's only look at 440 plus foot home runs. No disrespect to the shorter home runs, just so that we get a shorter list. And then it's not loading a 390 foot home run. That is not going to be our longest home run of the season. So if we come over here and we go to metric range, basically this is giving you another filter where you can select a number associated with it. So only give me results that have this number, whatever it might be. So if you go over here and you go to distance projected, it's saying, basically what this is allowing you to do is choose a distance and say, give me everything greater than this or give me everything less than this. So we'll go over here. And what I said 440. So we'll go to 440 and sort. So it's still going to give us the same top of the list. It's still going to give us the same answer for longest home run. It's just not going to give us shorter home runs, so it'll load quicker. It's just to make your own life easier. That loaded very quickly. And the answer was this Acuna home run, 495. Watch it. The call's really good, but I understand you can't hear it. I can. It's great. He said that's walloped deep left. It was great. Just sharing. It was a leadoff home run, so that's a very fun one. Giancarlo Stanton hit this home run on I think it was their second game of the season, second longest home run, despite not playing for most of the season. So that's pretty fun. This is at Coors. Acuna here. This one is off of Garrett Cole. That's the longest home run Garrett Cole has allowed. So a lot of really fun home runs here. And while we're here, we could look at that pitch velocity one too, because I always think that's really fun. So we're going to get rid of our metric range because we don't want every 440 foot home run and how fast the pitch was. We want every home run. So I'm just going to get rid of this. And we're going to, I'm breaking my rule, but we're also searching home runs, so we can use the same page. We're going to go back to the player and event sort, and we're going to do pitch velocity. And now we're going to go back to metric range, and we're going to say, give us home runs off of 98 mile an hour pitches. Again, just so that the list is a little shorter, we're going to search. And it's this Jared Walsh home run off, Brewstar, of course. So off Brewstar Gratterall throwing at 99.8. We have Nelson Cruz off of Trevor Rosenthal. We have Austin Meadows off of Nate Eovaldi. And every search that I've done and everything I've shown you is only regular season because stats are Like that's just a known thing that stats refer to regular season. And you would only include the postseason if you say including postseason. We can add in the postseason here just to see. And then we get this Jose Altuve home run off of Glasnow, which was off 100.4. And Mike Brasso, you know this home run. This was the home run that decided the ALDS. So that was pretty notable at the time because at the time it was the fastest pitch hit for a home run in 2020, including the postseason. And then Altuve hit this one off Glasnow a couple days later. But at the time it was. And of course, history and everything else, pretty exciting moment. So we'll go to a few others. I'll go until you cut me off, Nick. We don't have to get to all these questions, so whatever works. So team to throw most 100-mile-an-hour pitches in 2020. Okay, so another baseball savant one. So we'll come over here, and we're going to do search and new search. So this is a team search. So we're going to leave it as pitcher because it's 100-mile-an-hour pitches. But down in the group by, we're going to change it to team. So I don't care if who the pitch was thrown by. All I care is what uniform they were wearing. Change it to team. And then we're going to do metric range. So we don't want the fastest pitch thrown by that team. We want the most at a certain velocity. So we go to pitch velocity, greater than equal to, we'll go 100. And the answer will be the Dodgers with Brewstar and Dustin May and Walker Buehler with a few in there. And yeah, that group, which makes sense. And this is just regular season again. The White Sox are up here like almost entirely because of Garrett Crochet. Maybe entirely because of Garrett Crochet. Nope, Dylan Cease there once. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, he threw 45. So that's really funny because before the final weekend of the season, they had won, and then Garrett Crochet showed up. And then this is going to be Rosenthal before he got traded, and Josh Staumont, I guess, right? Yep. So yeah, that's just another fun one. And you can see there's only 18 teams here. One thing with Baseball Savant is that it won't show you zeros. So, I mean, you could eyeball this or just, match it with a standings page or something to figure out the teams that didn't. Looking at it, I don't see the Indians. We could go through whoever else we don't see. Obviously, these teams with like one each are so fascinating. The Mets is going to be like a Edwin Diaz and DeGrom combo. Let's see who threw the one for the Rockies. Yeah, I was going to guess maybe Bard. Gregory Soto, who looked great in Winter League. Alex Reyes threw one. We have Josh James, and we have Jorge Alcala. So just funny thing, not that two is not much more notable either, but that's another one. Let's see. I'm going to do this one. So fewest home runs for a starter in a season with at least 20 appearances. So I'm going to change this to at least 20 starts just for the purpose of searching. So we're going to come over here and we're going to say pitching season finder. And okay, so fewest. So again, we're going to change to ascending, and it was fewest home runs allowed. And then at least 20 starts we're going to go with. So we are searching for at least 20 starts, sorted by smallest home runs. And the answer is a lot of guys with 0, like a ton. And based on the years, I'm going to say, what about someone in like the divisional era? Or no, let's say the wild card era. So like super recent, since in the 90s. So nobody has allowed 0 home runs, making at least 20 starts, but we had 2 pitchers who allowed 4, making exactly and 1 over the 20. But Rich Hill in 2016 had 20 starts and 4 home runs, and Anibal Sanchez in 2014 made 21 starts with 4 home runs. And if we just eyeball this, I wonder if I can find the first 30. And it is Clayton Kershaw right here. Okay, so there's a couple. So Clayton Kershaw and Andy Pettitte each made at least 30 starts and allowed 7 home runs, which is the fewest by a 30-start pitcher in the wild card era. So since 94 or 95, excuse me. Clayton Kershaw, young Clayton Kershaw in 2009, and young Andy Pettitte in 1997. So that's a fun one. And with the bold, you know that he actually led the American League in starts this year. And it will do the bold stuff, even if it's a tie. So it's possible that someone else also made 35 starts that year. This won't give you any indication of that, but still very cool. All right, I will keep going. Most players with 10 home runs or 20 home runs or 30 home runs on a team in a single season. Okay, so if we go over here to batting season finder, excuse me. So we have 2 options for teams with players matching criteria. Teams with players matching criteria in a season will tell us the answer to the question I just read. Teams with players matching criteria in a career will tell us like what team has the most guys who've hit 300 home runs for them or something like that. So we're going to want this first one with the season. And we want most guys with 10 home runs. So we're going to do 10 home runs and search. And we will get the Yankees in 2019. So the Twins set the home run record, but the Yankees set this little record. The Twins, I think, had the record for 30 homer guys, which I'll drop down and we'll get to that. But you can see everyone, and you can, if you switch it to widescreen view over here, it'll show you everybody, all of the names that are cut off. So if we wanted to do, we could sort this by year instead to look at something. But, you know, this is helpful. It's interesting that, you know, we have a bunch of American League teams before we get to these National League teams. If we want to change it to 20 home runs, same thing. It's probably going to be all the same teams for the most part because 10 could also be 20 or 30. But here we go. So if we go to 20 home runs, the Twins did set that record when they set the home run record. And you can see who all they had. And if we go to 30, I believe it's also them. And indeed it is. Oops. So it's Nelson Cruz, Mitch Garver, Max Kepler, Eddie Rosario, and Miguel Sano all hit at least 30 homers for the Twins in 2019 when they set the home run record. You can see that there's 13 teams here. The first team to have at least 4 was Dusty Baker's 1977 Dodgers, so that's fun. And then there's kind of a big jump here to 1995. So that's kind of cool just to trace history like that. And if we want to do 40 homer guys, just because why not complete the set? We will get 3 teams. Ooh, this came up. I forget why this came up. Maybe because some of those Twins guys were close, but I remember looking into this. So the first team to have 3 players with 40 home runs was the 1973 Braves with Henry Aaron, Darrell Evans, and Davey Johnson. 96 Rockies did it. 97 Rockies did it. It makes sense that we have some Colorado teams here. But pretty cool that we have 1973 and then the Rockies coming into existence and coming into their own. So it's pretty fun. And you can see that, you know, in the span of baseball history, only 30 instances of teams in a year have actually had even 2 guys do this, and first few are Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. So pretty cool to think about because having 2 guys head to 40 home runs is certainly an achievement. I mean, nobody's projected for that this year. So yeah, that's another one. And this is a very similar one. We can end with this, I think, based on the timing. So most pitchers with 200 strikeouts on a team in a single season or 300. So same kind of concept. We're just doing strikeouts instead of home runs, right? So if we go to season pitching finder, same thing, teams with players matching criteria in a season. And we're going to go to strikeouts, 200, get the results. And the answer is, I remember when they set this record, the 2018 Indians had Trevor Bauer, Carlos Carrasco, Mike Clevenger, Corey Kluber all reached 200 strikeouts. That was the first time team had ever had four guys do that. The Astros did it that same year, but they only had 3. And the 2019 Nationals also got there with, that rotation that basically carried them to a World Series title. So pretty fun to see that. And if we scroll here for all the 2s, I was going to say we're definitely going to get some 1800s because you think of strikeouts as recent. And certainly in the span of the modern game, we're used to a lot more strikeouts recently. But these 1800s, I mean, if you're interested in fun names, hi, Old Hoss, and just like crazy numbers, if you look through everything pre-1900 on Baseball Reference, you will definitely find, we had, who was it, Matt Kilroy, right? Yeah, this guy with 513 strikeouts, you'll find some pretty wild numbers. So, of course, the New York Metropolitans, not those ones, were the first team, 1884 in the American Association, to have 2 guys with 200 strikeouts. And then real quick, we can just look at what it might be for 300. And just the 2019 Astros with Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. And the 2002 Diamondbacks, Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling. These are also notable because I think both of these duos finished 1-2 for Cy Young, 1-2 and 1-2. So it just tells you how rare it is to have 2 teammates on that level. 300 is definitely its own type of thing. And if we go down here, we have Old Hoss, Tim Keefe, and Jim Whitney with the first 300 strikeout seasons. Technically, usually when guys get 300 strikeouts, we kind of start here and say in the modern era, just only because, it's a very different game if we look at who Old Hoss was facing and all of that. But yeah, so it's 7:57, so I feel like that's probably my stopping point. I got to almost every question, and I think people might know the answer to this trivia question regardless, and, something for you to look into, maybe some homework. So, thank you so much.
Sarah, that was fantastic. Philip Hughes, right?
Yes, exactly. I figured this group would know that and remember that. Obviously, qualified season, I didn't write that, but I would have said it.
Sure, of
but
course.
Yes, that's the fun one.
Oh man, as a Yankee fan, I remember him coming back from injury and throwing like an almost no hitter in Texas and then hurting his hamstring. I have a soft spot for Phil Hughes always.
Yes,
so it's good to see
great
that.
Twitter account too, right?
Oh yeah,
we need to shout that out.
S-tier.
Great Twitter presence.
S-tier, definitely. But yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, just watching along, I'm seeing those questions going, I have no idea how to do this. And you just definitely like, oh yeah, this is easy. You just go right over here. Don't forget this one, Amazing stuff. Really incredibly helpful, Sarah. And you have about 1 more minute or so. If there's one general tip that you would give someone, when they have a question ahead, how should they approach it? I know that's very vague considering that there's a very easy method on your end, but still, do you have a general tip?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my overall, the number one thing I say when I train people in researching, in work or anything else, is that you need to know where to find it to best do it. So I understand that maybe that's a chicken and egg kind of thing, but really familiarizing yourself with the tools available, like Fangraphs, Savant, Baseball Reference, are all available to anybody, without any work help or anything else like that. And so kind of perusing those sites and figuring out what questions you can answer there is the best way to get better at it. Because then when you see a question, I was going through that list and I was like, okay, this is Savant and this is Reference, and we didn't have any that were Fangraphs, but this could have been Fangraphs. And so that's the best way to get good at researching. Right. And my initial, foray into all of this was working, on live TV at ESPN. So there's a ticking clock too. Sure. So you need to know how to quickly find what you need and still be accurate. Even if it's as simple as remembering Baseball Reference historical, Baseball Savant is next level, that probably gets you at least 50% of the way there. Right. Whereas if you don't remember that mantra, you're I don't know where to look,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, know exactly what is available so you know where to look. That's a very, very helpful tip. Sarah, thank you so much for being a part of this. Really, everybody give her a follow at S Langs on Sports on Twitter. Hopefully we get to see you on TV a bit this year. Crossing my fingers. You deserve it.
Thank
And
you.
it's
Thank you.
fantastic having you. Thank you so much for being a part of PitchCon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and good luck with everything. I've tuned in sporadically. I had work all week, but it seems like everything's been going great, and I'm just so glad for you that first event went so well that here you are again doing this. So, thanks so
So
much.
am I. It's a product of everybody that's involved. So thanks for being here.
Of course, thank you.
All right, that was a fantastic presentation helping you with your baseball research.